Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Wine and Comics Pairing Show. I'm Dave.
And I'm Dallas.
And today is going to be what I like to call a special unbottling. We are going to open this Château Lagrange 1990 vintage. This is going to be the oldest wine I have ever drunk. Ever sipped, ever tasted. I don't know about you. Have you ever been? No. So this is going to be a record for both of us. And I don't know.
No, I have.
Oh, you have. Older than 1990? Oh, see? Okay. What's your oldest?
Yeah. 1974, I think.
You have done a 1974? Yeah. All right. Well, okay. Dallas wins.
73. Yeah.
Dallas wins that one.
But at that time, I know concept of vocabulary.
Okay. So
it was lost on me.
Over the head. Well, this time we're going to enjoy this. So we're going to open this. You can see it's completely unopened. So this is the big night. I've had this for a little while. I bought this again. I know I've pimped this group before, but this was purchased on the Wine Spies website. They do, so this was actually affordable even at 1990. And it is a Pomerol, which is, I don't know much about Pomerol, but we're going to just talk a little bit about what I have looked up about it to know a little bit about what it is we're going to be drinking here today. All right, we'll be right back. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of something.
Ooh. Gadgets?
No, not gadgets, unfortunately. I don't have any super cool gadgets, but just so you know, so I just removed the foil. It is an old cork. So I've got to go very careful with this. I'm going to record this to see how bad I F this up. And we might have to get like a little knife or something to help me out here, but okay.
Lovely.
We're going to go nice and slow. Very controlled. I'm going to go as deep as I can because I want this whole thing coming out at once, if at all possible.
Take your hand down. So you can see.
Yeah. We're doing good. All right.
Also, if you didn't know, we are clearly weirdos.
Woo! Look at that bad boy. Look at that fucker. Oh, that is an old cork. My friends. I know. Look at the dust on the rim. And this was foil sealed even, and we're just gonna wipe that away so it doesn't get all in the wine as it pours. And it is coming off for the most part. Maybe dab a little water on that. Okay, let me go remove the cork from the corkscrew and pour these in some glasses so that it can air out a little bit. So, yeah, again, so everyone can get a good view here.
Makeup tutorial.
Yeah, look at that bad boy.
Oh,
that is just.
That is.
I know. And that is Pomerol 1990. What does it say?
It says. Miss on, I guess Miss on something.
Oh Lord,
it's Miss on.
Miss on Bogil.
I cannot make it out.
Yeah, no, I can't make it out either. It's very, but there's Château Lagrange. And then it says, Miss en something. But in French, so even if we could figure out the letters, it's a question as to whether we would actually know what it says.
So I do know that the gentleman who owns this...
Lagrange.
Yes. He also owns Dominus, which is out of Napa, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and this was a wine that is even, and for those of you... there's Dominus and the other Pomerol... Not the same guy, but Petrus. Is the big Pomerol.
Right.
The super expensive, super hard to get your hands on any bottles at all of any kind. And this is actually grown in very close to the vineyards that produce the Petrus. and very similar soils. We're going to talk about that, though, in just a little bit. So let's hold off on that. First, we're going to do some palate wetters. This has been open for about a half hour now, so we've let it decant. Oh. I know.
Whoa.
Now, the interesting thing...
Whoa.
So this thing has... It has definitely... It's got a nice, rich, dark, plummy color. There is the tiniest bit of browning on the wine at this point, but it's very tiny. For a 32-year-old bottle... Like 1990, I think...
what were you doing in 1990? Let's start there. What were you doing in 1990?
So I mentioned that I bought this on the Wine Spies website, and I love that they actually had a little write-up where they said, like, Seinfeld debuted in 1990. So that's something people were doing.
The 90s was that decade when everyone was sort of bridging the gap
Terminator 2 hadn't come out yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the millennium was looming, and we just... the decade was 10 years away. It was
10 years away.
We just come out of the ostentatiousness of the 80s and Reagan, and, you know... Yeah, it was a curious decade. It was the decade of Saturday morning cartoons on
1990 was Bush... Was that Bush Sr. or was it still Reagan?
That was Bush Sr.
That was Bush Sr. Until 92, right?
Right.
Yes. Okay. So Bush Sr. in the middle of his term. So that was Gulf War.
Absolutely.
That was Gulf War. God.
That was the first World Trade Center attack.
Right. And I had yet to enter high school.
Yeah.
If you want to know how old I am.
That's right. Same.
So yeah, I was 92 to 96 in high school. Oh my God. Yeah, you were 11. I was 11 or 12, something around those lines.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Chronically uncool to this day.
No, I must have been maybe 13. I must have been 13 in 1990.
Okay.
Yeah, I turned 13 so I'm a July baby. So I'm in the middle of the year that I always turn, and I think that the July of 1990 I turned 13. So I was 12 half the year and 13 the other half of the year. Yeah. Yeah,
chronically uncool. I had 4 sets of encyclopedia.
Ooh!
Yeah, I
only had the family set. The family bought it, and I was like, "The fuck is this?" And
my friends were the volume.
You can. Yeah, we were that generation that, like, my parents still bought the encyclopedia 100%. Sets and whatnot. And
Britannica, World Book.
Britannica, yes. And we would. That is what you would use to, like, do. What do they call it?
Research,
but for your school papers, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what would they call it when you recite? Citations, not recitations, but citations.
So kids listening, you know how you can pull up your phone and access any bit of information throughout time?
Yeah.
No, we had books, and they were usually outdated.
Yes.
Or
whatever our local libraries had. Or our school library had. But that was acceptable because that's all they could... For the most part, if it wasn't at the school library, they're like, they couldn't force you to use it because you didn't have to have access to anything else.
Card catalogs. Go look it up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dewey Decimal System.
Index cards, buddies. My God. Yeah, the index. And
Xerox.
And so when I got into college, it was so on the line because my college began in 96 and ended in 2000. My bachelor year, I didn't get a master's degree. I don't know why I said that. But so my college years were those 4 years, and they forced me to get an email address.
Oh, I hated every minute.
And I had to research and do citations for a paper online because they're like, that's the future. You need to cite things. They allowed you to use Wikipedia at the time because it was such a new thing. No one was like, that's Wikipedia. That doesn't count. They were like, no, anything online is you learning how to use the fucking internet, and that's good. But we were so on the line that I got to college, and they forced you to, and thank God they did, because of course that absolutely was the future. They were not wrong about that.
They were right.
But we didn't have emails. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't use the internet for much, if anything. I mean, there were message boards and shit like that.
What was the name of the? Oh, God, I always forget the name. It's the predecessor of the computer. The word processors.
Word processors. Yes.
Like typing a paper on a word processor. Just a nightmare. Anyway, that was the 90s. Showing us the future, but rooting us in the past. And I think, to a certain degree, that's what this wine also kind of does. The Pomerol, because it's a neighbor of the Bordeaux region, which is the standard.
We even have on the back, there's a big old Bordeaux label, if you can see that in the lighting. There it goes. Which... the folks who imported this were very much about the Bordeaux wines and Pomerol. And in the 1990, I don't know how big Pomerol was in 1990. That is a question. I think they were becoming pretty big. I know they weren't very big in the 70s, but I think by the 80s and into 1990, they were definitely something. They were gaining steam if they weren't already where they are today.
Yeah.
But this is, again, I think the oldest wine bottle I've had before today was maybe a 2000. So this predates that by 10 years at least. The only one I know for sure I've had was a 2005. I've had a Rioja that was 2005. I've had a California Petite Syrah that was 2005, both of which...
Petite Syrah, the 74 was a...
Petite Syrah. And of course, when I had the 2000, I think I had that 2000 in 2004. So it wasn't old at the time. And like Dallas, I didn't appreciate it really at the time. I was working at a restaurant. I had to taste these things so I could sell the damn wine. But I was not a wine drinker. I was not a wino the way I am today. I did not come into that until much, much later.
All right, let's do
it. All right, God. Okay, let's talk about
the nose.
Yes, let's talk about the nose.
What's the nose first? What are you getting?
One thing. I will define this better after this word. Age. There is a dusty, leathery, so much leather. And polish almost, but not in a bad way. And I know that's hard to say. It's like you start to describe things like, it's like shoe polish. And you're like, what? But there's a pininess to it.
The avatar, the thumbnail I'm going to give you for that age is a cigar box.
Cigar box? Yes.
Cigar box.
I know more pipe tobacco better than cigar.
Interesting.
Because I know cigar box is a favorite wine nose and palate descriptor. But for me, I grew up with a dad who smoked pipes. He never smoked cigars, but he smoked sweet tobacco and pipes. As a kid, I fucking loved pipe tobacco smell. I've never loved cigar or cigarette. They're both cigarette just tastes like exhaust from a car, right?
It's just caustic.
Cigars are unique. They're interesting, but they're pungent in a way, kind of like if you're not into wine and you smell wine, you're like, ugh. But if you're into wine, you're like, ooh. Cigars, I get it,
but
that
the
it's
cigar
a connoisseur
box
element.
is curious because the cigar box doesn't have the actual smoke.
It's almost like the wine barrel.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Because it's the wood.
Yeah.
It's the element of what the box was made out of that then captures all that tobacco fume where it's been sitting in there and it absorbs it to some degree.
And as a cigar guy...
Did you sip it? You sip it? Oh!
100%. As a cigar guy, I do enjoy it.
I haven't yet. I still haven't drunk in 1990. I'm soon. Go.
Oh, my God.
Now, I will say...
Wait a minute. You just go ahead and taste that and sit.
Just
sit with it.
All right, I'm going to taste it. Here we go. The oldest wine I have ever sipped, and certainly the first oldest wine that I've ever been able to appreciate it. This is 15 years older than any wine that I've actually drunk while liking wine. So, here we go. Oh, and I will say, there's a huge dried cherry smell to this.
Oh, yeah.
just to finish up the scent element of this, big leather or cigar box or both. Definite dried cherries. What is that? God damn it. There's a little bit of like, I don't know if it's piney or menthol.
Menthol.
For
sure.
All right, there's a menthol.
At the end.
Menthol minty smell to it. I'll see. Sure. Okay, here we go. Huh.
You know what's crazy? Do you know what's crazy? It makes me want to chew. It feels chewy. Like I want to...
You know, here's the thing. So this is, as you can see from the color, and this is the funny part about this Pomerol. It was described as the lighter side of Pomerol. So I was like, oh, maybe, and I chose 2 comics to pair this with to see which one's going to go better. Mostly because by the description on the site when I bought this bottle, it seemed like it might, especially, it said it was the lighter side of Pomerol, and then it has 32 years of age, which mellows a wine out. And we're going to talk about that, because holy shit. I don't think I've ever had a wine this mellow in my life. This is, we've talked about quaffable, and that's different than mellow. Because this is not something you drink fast. This has got serious body. This has got serious density. This has got serious color, serious bouquet, serious taste. But this is the mellowest thing this is the mellowest wine I've ever, I mean, this is what age does when a wine ages well. And it's not past its prime, and it's not. It's not.
This is very satisfying, actually.
This might be. I mean,
satisfying.
Oh my god,
this is extremely satisfying.
God, I mean, you look at this damn cork, and I was like, uh-oh. I wonder. Now I know old wine corks often look like this, but at the same time, I'm like, did any air get in there? Did it oxidize anything? You always wonder when the cork is this saturated.
I want to suck the cork. That's not a euphemism.
Wow. That should be a euphemism. For wine people, I want to suck that cork. I just think, okay, we're going to try and start that, if you don't mind.
Hashtag suck that cork. Guys, seriously, this is, wow. It's chewy. I don't know any, I don't have the...
I do get what you mean. I think so. Most of the time when people are describing wine, they talk about chewy tannins.
Yeah.
And that tends to be, and this is not, because the tannins are virtually eradicated.
They're really fine.
They're almost really fine. I mean, again, the mellow part. So if this is the first episode of ours you're watching, or the first wine anything you're watching, for God's sakes, why? But if you are, tannins are the dry mouth feeling that you get. And chewy tannins are something where it's like you're almost fighting the dryness in your mouth because there's so much tannic quality to it. It comes from the grape skin, so you mostly find it in red wines. You can find a teeny bit in rosés, almost nothing in white wines, because they don't use the grape skins. And then the more tannic it's going to be, the more you get that coffee or black tea dry mouth feeling when you sip those things, because those have high tannins too.
What's that note? Ooh. Oh, what is that? What's that?
So dried cherry for sure. If you literally had a bag of dried cherries and were just munching on it, it would taste not far from this wine. It's wonderful in that way. But unlike dried cherries, you don't have even the tart bite of dried cherries is missing from this, which is a positive. Like maybe some red currant. I would go with that. Definitely that menthol mint quality is in there as well. In very much in the aftertaste, you get that little kick of mint that passes through.
The cigar box is it's a curious thing, because it's this tobacco-y age. It's the aging, I think, has a lot to do with it. But it also has this woodsy
Yes.
quality.
You're getting, well, as the tannins mellow, I think you get, and this is an interesting fun fact actually about tannins. So when they oak barrel age wine, part of the reason they use oak is it exchanges tannins or combines tannins depending on how you want to describe this chemistry, this chemical reaction that happens. The oak itself has its own tannins in it, being in the same way that, like, if you do what's called whole cluster grape fermentation, where you put the wood part of the grapes in the vines, like you take it all, the whole cluster, you don't destem it, you shove it all in there and let it ferment together. That's called whole cluster, and you get extra tannins and extra flavors from that wood element. And oak has its own tannins that are much mellower than grape skin tannins. And when you age things in oak, the tannins kind of mesh together and become something softer that's much more palatable than grape skin tannins all on their own. So this almost feels like the grape skin tannins are now like gone. And all that's left are your woodsy tannins that are left behind in this aging process. And so you taste a little bit more, a lot bit more of that oak, of that woodsy element. And it's not an oak in that way. Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
How dare you?
Pour your own. You got two hands.
Damn it.
No, it's okay. I expect this bottle to be gone by the end of tonight. So
100%.
Help yourself. Yeah. Don't be precious about it. We're opening it tonight. It's gone tonight. Well, you don't know. With the 32-year-old bottle, will it still be good tomorrow? And I don't know. It might be. It might be even better. But honestly, I'm going to take on the risk. I'm drinking it tonight. But yeah, I would give it those, because normally with oak, you get those like oaky Chardonnays and oaky Cabernet Sauvignons. Oh, I know. Oh, don't even get me started. So you can see, I don't know. Let me see if you can see this in the lighting here. So you can see the staining, like just the color of the wine that's been in there for so long, it stained the glass on the inside. With enough hot water and shaking, you could probably get that out of there. But, and this is, so Pomerol, and this Pomerol in specific, mostly Merlot and Cabernet Franc is what you're going to get out of Pomerol wine. And in this case, it is 95% Merlot, 5% Cabernet Franc. So it's a little bit of Cabernet Franc to add whatever the Cabernet Franc might add. It would be a lighter body, a little bit more of a vegetal characteristic initially, whereas Merlot is going to be very fruity, a good body to it. The one thing about Merlot is it can, I think this was a really good vintage at the time, which is why it's aged so well. But Merlot can be flat. It can be flatty. And which is one of the downfalls of Merlot.
Yeah, for sure.
But this one, I mean, I'm getting, I can't even imagine what this must have tasted like 30 years ago. Like when it first came out? Yeah. Well, it was 1990, so they would have released it in like 92 or 93. So it would have had at least 2 or 3 years of age on it already. Because the year on a bottle is always when they harvest the grapes, not when they release the wine. So there's always, and for red wines, you're talking minimum 2 years before they're going to release any red wine.
Okay, great quote. Okay. As you open this bottle, reflect on Ben Franklin's immortal lines. Wine is a constant reminder that God loves us.
Oh, yes.
And loves to see us happy.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about the Founding Fathers.
No.
Although I will say, Jefferson and Franklin had strong opinions on wine.
They definitely did.
And they wrote a lot about it. And
they really did.
They did both think that wine was... Jefferson desperately wanted the USA to be an amazing wine grower. And in those years, it was not.
No.
The climate wasn't right. We also hadn't expanded out west far enough yet.
Sure.
Because he was trying, we just talked about Virginia wines. Jefferson tried so hard to make Virginia wine country.
Absolutely.
And it failed spectacularly at the time. We didn't have the technology to be able to make a climate like Virginia work for wine, and we didn't have the climate change. that allows Virginia to work for wine. I mean, to be honest. And it's only in the last few decades that all of that has been able to happen. But he was he spent money on making Virginia a wine country. And
they were trying.
It didn't, sure. and so he wrote at length where it's like, these grapes, this wine that was grown here was shit. And it was like, didn't have any of the effervescent qualities and the, what do they always call transcendent qualities that European wines
and
had.
I think the Smithsonian still has a number of bottles from their attempts.
Ah,
I
good job. No. Almost. I recently saw, one YouTuber that I follow, and he's a master of wine, certified master of wine, Constantine. Fudge. I'm not gonna remember. His name is Constantine with a K. So not like one of the comics I'm about to show you that I wanted to pair with this wine.
What?
Yes. Not with the C, but with a K.
That's hilarious.
That is. That all dovetailed together beautifully. But he recently opened a bottle of 1850 something port. And he
I love
had
a port, guys.
Yes.
If you're not in the ports, check this.
And I didn't know this, but apparently, so the cork, unlike this cork, which I was worried about, but it's only 32 years old, this thing was over 150 years old. And he had to, so you see the shape of the bottle here? He had these tongs. You hold the tongs in fire until they get super hot, and you clip them onto the neck of the bottle, and then it'll hold them there for a certain number of minutes, let it go, then quickly pour cold water on it. And then you just snap the whole neck off, like clean, because you can't touch the cork. It will dissolve and just fall straight into the wine, and then it's undrinkable at that point. So, but I'd never seen that actually in practice, and it turned out to be a delicious port, the best port you'd ever tried. So this is so smooth, so mellow, but not in the way I have ever described any younger wine being smooth and mellow. This is smooth and mellow in a way that only something like 32 years of age can get you.
So curious you say that, because the first thing I got, mouthfeel, was there's this thing that happens, for me at least, when it comes to older wines, aged wines, is it almost feels similar to oil on the tongue. Yeah, I think it's the lack of tannins, or the sort of how refined the tannins are. It feels silky.
Yes.
It feels extraordinarily smooth.
I agree with that. But you can also see, so in body, when people talk about the body of a liquid, whether it's wine, whether it's coffee, whether it's tea, they always talk about the legs. So when you swirl it and then you stop, you'll see these,
We're gonna shine up the glasses next time.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Yeah, I know these are not the cleanest glasses. I don't think you can see it here on the camera. But there are these legs where it's like the liquid kind of sticks and then slowly comes down with the rest of the wine, and that means it's a thicker viscosity, and that's the body of the whole thing. And this is a decently bodied wine. I thought it would be a lighter body, but it's not.
Not at all.
And you can see those. You can see those legs on there. Like, they're sticking.
Yeah, you can.
They're sticking. It's not the heaviest bodied wine I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong, but it's. Again, the write up of this wine made me think it was going to be light bodied, light colored, light. And then of course, 32 years of age. I'm like, oh God, this could taste like nothing. This could literally be so smooth to the point of being characterless, but it's not. This is full of character. This is amazing. I'm
impressed.
I am so happy I am drinking this right now. I can't even begin to tell you. So,
mise en bouteille à la propriété.
So now what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the comics we think are going to pair really well with this wine. I think I'm going to stick. I had two in mind. One, in case this was lighter and mellower and funner, for lack of a better term, than I thought it was going to be. And one, if it was going to be a more darker brooding beast. And this is a darker brooding beast. It's mellow as fuck, but there's so much. there's so much going on in here, and it's going on in a way I'm not used to because I haven't drunk anything this old before.
You know what's curious about this? I keep going back to the word curious. That's my term for this. Curious.
Curious. Yeah.
I don't want to eat while drinking this.
Oh, hell no. What do you need?
At all.
This
is the meal.
There's nothing to cut. You know what I mean? You don't, if you have a more tannic, if you have a heavier beast of a wine, you need food to cut it.
Precisely.
Or most people need food to cut it. I never eat one.
Give me a cracker.
I'm good. Yeah. But most people need food to cut it. But this, you need nothing. There's nothing to cut.
This is the meal. This is the entree.
There's nothing but wonderful flavors, wonderful aromas, a wonderful experience. And it's so smooth, so gentle on the stomach, so gentle on the throat going down. There's no bite. There's no alcoholic bite. There's no tannic bite. It is, that's my word for it. This is so, All right. Let's talk about the comic, because we're going to try sipping this while reading the comic to see if we picked right. Okay, so let me talk about mine first.
Let's do it.
So because this wine turned out the way it is, and I totally think, like I said, I had two comics. I'm not going to mention them because I will pair that one with something else someday. But for today, I am going to pair it, as I mentioned, Constantine, and I'm going to pair it with the OG Vertigo Hellblazer, but a specific Hellblazer. A specific point in Hellblazer. So I really like the idea of finding a comic that was coming out in 1990 to pair with this wine. And it turns out, I wasn't sure if it was going to work. And believe me, I thought of a couple that I was like, no, not that one. And then a few that I thought might have been 1990, but that's so long ago. I was like, I'm sure that was coming out in 1990. Right. Nope, it started in like 95. And I was like, holy shit, half a decade off. Okay, I thought it was old. 1990, guys, like Infinity Gauntlet was a germ of an idea in Jim Starlin's eye that hadn't happened yet. 1990 was a long fucking time ago, but Hellblazer had begun as a for mature readers. I believe it was Vertigo by 1990. I'm not 100% sure of that because Hellblazer actually was
Where did it start?
Say what?
Where did it start?
So it was DC Comics owns Vertigo. Oh, right. Vertigo has always been DC Comics, but at first DC just made a for mature readers only line and didn't call it anything. Right. They just stamped that on the covers. And Swamp Thing and Hellblazer were the two.
Right.
Maybe Sandman for a brief period, but I think Sandman might have started under Vertigo when they actually properly debuted the brand, but maybe not. I think maybe even Sandman might have started under the for mature readers only, but it didn't have Vertigo as a brand yet. But I think by this point in time, it was Vertigo. And this is the end of the first writer of Hellblazer, Jamie Delano's run. All right. So nowadays, Hellblazer has been collected into these omnibuses, and this is omnibus 4 and 5. You do need to read 1 through 3 to understand what the F is going on in 4 and 5. Now, the joy of this is number 5 contains the last chunk of Jamie Delano's run, which is very important, and the first storyline of Garth Ennis's run, Dangerous Habits, which is what everyone swears by as the best Hellblazer story ever told. I swear by it as the best Hellblazer story ever told. So if you buy Omnibus number 5, not only do you get what I'm about to pair this wine with, but you will also get that first storyline by Garth Ennis, which defined John Constantine and Hellblazer for generations to come. The movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves loosely was based on the Dangerous Habits story. And so, very loosely. But it was, if anything, it was based on that one. It had those elements of it, of him having cancer, and so on and so forth. So that is a brilliant story as well, and it's in the second half of Omnibus number 5. But Omnibus number 4 and 5 of Hellblazer, of the Jamie Delano run, these are the stories that, until they made these omnibuses, had never been collected. They were you had to go seek out the individual issues to read these stories. Jamie Delano, they only had the first 9 issues of his run collected in a trade paperback. And I think that was it. They never collected the rest of his run. And it's...
Really?
No, ever. Until they made these... I mean, you could just get the issues, which were not super cheap, but not super expensive either. They weren't the first... They weren't Hellblazer #1, right? They collected those early issues 1 through 9 in a trade paperback. Right. But then from there, you just jumped to fucking Garth Ennis, which is where everyone thought Hellblazer kind of began. But really, that was like issue 40-something. So between Jamie Delano wrote almost like 30-something, almost 40 issues of Hellblazer and defined the character. And there's so much that Ennis and all the writers that came after him, Mike Carey, Paul Jenkins, Brian Azzarello, Andy Diggle, all of them...
he did stamp the profile.
Picked up a lot of the backstory that Delano actually... Because Alan Moore created John Constantine in the Swamp Thing comic. But he didn't really define his backstory. He didn't really define the character outside of what he was for the Swamp Thing stories. So when Delano came on, he was like, okay, who is this guy? What makes him who he is? What makes him tick? And he defined everything in these stories. And these two were the issues that were coming out during 1990. A little bit into 89, a little bit into 91, but then all of 1990 in between. And this is The Family Man, which is John Constantine versus an actual down-to-earth, mundane serial killer. And it's wonderful. It's fucking brilliant. And that's The Family Man. The name of the serial killer is The Family Man because he would kill whole families at a time.
I enjoy that.
Do you enjoy... Yeah, no.
As a writer.
No, as a writer.
They kill everyone.
It is a wonderful storyline. And he even has to defeat him in a mundane way with a gun, which is not really a spoiler. He goes and buys a gun because he's so terrified of confronting someone. Like, it's one thing to, like, I'm going to fight another Magus. I'm going to find another magician. And it's like, right, I've got magic down pat. I've got demons down pat. Someone just running around with a knife slaughtering people, Constantine was freaked the fuck out. And I really loved that about that storyline. And then you have his final story arc in this. This one's just called Dangerous Habits based on the Ennis half of this omnibus. But the ending of Jamie Delano's run is what I would maybe call the Golden Boy storyline, for lack of a better term. And it's the idea that Constantine had a twin brother in the womb that he, as a fetus, killed in the womb. But that other fetus was meant to be the great magician. And Constantine is the wannabe. He's the con man. He's the grifter magician that is down and dirty and like the best humanity's gonna get because he fucking killed the second coming, magician that was going to come. And that's the original sin of Constantine that most people aren't even aware of. And these storylines they're dark, they're dense, but I enjoyed reading them through and through. And I had a feeling with this wine being... Oh, I love this. And the wine,
that smell.
The wine smells like printed pages. Let's also go out with the age. There's an element of like if you got a book that was actually, or a comic that was actually from 1990, and you pulled it out of its bag and board. That's the age part. That dusty, leathery quality. There's that element of like if you pulled a comic from 1990 that had been in the bag and board since like 91. And you pulled it out and you rifled those pages and you sniffed it, it would smell a little
this reminds me of weird high school attractions and encounters.
Yeah.
In the dugout.
But this wine, this is a soulful wine, right?
It is.
This is a wine that is, on the nose, it's powerful. It has body. It has density. It has super deep, dark, rich color.
You know what else it has? I'll say that for my comic. No,
but
you go.
It is nothing but enjoyable. And I will say these Delano, the end of Delano's run, I'll even go with that first storyline of Garth Ennis, which is possibly the ultimate Hellblazer story ever told. Get get omnibuses 1 through 5. If nothing else, get those. Read the Delano run before 4 and 5, but then 4 and 5, I think, are his pinnacle, are his peak. Ennis came in all guns blazing and blew Hellblazer out of the water immediately after. But these Delano issues, I think they pair with this wine gorgeously.
I like it.
All right.
Good job. Good choice.
Yeah. And you know what? We said in like episode number 1 that we were never going to do big 2. Oopsie.
Yeah. No.
So
it's going to happen, guys.
Sometimes.
I think I've already done.
My backup was a total like a indie comic from 1990 that I was going to. But I will do it on another episode. I'm going to find the wine that pairs with that fucker. So I'm coming back with that one. But anyways, here's our first big 2. It's Hellblazer. Yeah. So sorry. It's Vertigo though. I mean, I think everyone forgets Vertigo on that.
You give them some latitude.
Exactly. Okay.
All right, guys. So, in looking at this wine, digging into this wine, I knew that it was quintessentially 90s. It was, it was the kind of wine that people purchased with the anticipation that one day, with a little age, with a little time, it would come into its own and be a standout.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there was this sort of notion of projection, of longevity.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
But it was also rooted in this sort of tradition of Bordeaux, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that its legs are really old world, really deep.
I mean, I think this thing even got like 94 points when it came out. Absolutely. So people were thinking it was delicious then.
Absolutely.
But then it was going to be better and better and better.
But then the true sort of aficionados and the true sort of people who understood the vocabulary understood that in 20, 30 years, this wine was going to be spectacular. Yes. And I chose a comic that Mr. Baxter here will be intimately acquainted with.
Is it Darkhawk?
No.
Okay, good.
Absolutely
not. I thought of Darkhawk for this, but it didn't debut until 91.
I totally see that.
I couldn't.
I chose...
Thieves and Kings! Sorry, kitty. I scared him.
So I'm going to let Dave take this one because watch, he just gets electric when you talk about Thieves and Kings. But Thieves and Kings, again, by Mark Oakley. I'm just going to read. Because it's just one of those things. It's like, so Rebel or Ruble, depending on your perspective.
I always said Ruble.
Me too. Yeah. Is a thief, and due to surprising set of circumstances, he actually is the princess's thief. After years of being at sea, Ruble is returning to Oceanside and the city of Highbourne. I love that name. I love the fucking name of that city. And his princess, but he finds things aren't the same as he left them. Ruble's grandfather has been lost in a shipwreck, and his wizard friend, Zepfester, is also missing. Ruble discovers that the shadowy you know what? I'm going to stop. You guys just need to fucking read this comic. Now, the beauty of this is, first of all, just some background. Mark Oakley is one of these sort of insanely prolific creators. He also did Star Drop. Maybe you are or aren't familiar with Star Drop. The content isn't necessarily all that deep, but it's just a satisfying experience. It's just fun, and sometimes comics just need to be fucking fun. See, I said fucking. God damn it!
More complex than you think it's going to be for how fun it is.
It is.
Like Star Drop's almost done in like a comic strip format, almost. Yeah. But then the story just gets more and more complicated as it goes, and he handles all the characters and all the arcs. And all the ideas that he throws in there. You think it's going to be kind of this simple... Most people, I think, would do like a one-shot of something like Star Drop. Mm-hmm. And it would be like 24 to 48 pages done in one. Maybe I'll do a sequel if people love it. But whatever, it's done. There's not much to this concept. And Mark is one of those guys that he comes up with these seemingly very simple setups and ideas. And then just writes... the shit out of it to the point where you're just like, where am like you're in Tolkien territory. Where you're just like, it's so complex and so much happening and so many ideas.
And one of the things you'll notice about this, and by the way, guys, please just fucking go out and get this. This is volume 1. There is a second volume. So initially, the idea was that there was supposed to be 100, and there only ended up being 40 issues. 48 issues. 48 issues.
But he continued doing graphic novels even without the issues.
Exactly.
He's up to volume 6, I want to say.
They're up to volume 6. But what he does is he takes you on this crazy journey. You'll see here. Sometimes they're just pages of absolute. You're not going to see.
I'll put it up on the screen like I usually do.
Of this really dense text that's just a pleasure to read.
It's half not illustrated prose. They called that something. Not highlighted. Oh no! When they did like the old monks did the Bibles and they would do drawings all around the text.
What's the phrase?
There's a phrase. We're gonna find it out, but you know what? I'm gonna
think of the Gutenberg Bible.
Yes,
the Gutenberg Bible. Those Bibles of that era always had filigree and imagery around the outside because they knew that people were dumb and they needed to sort of tell the story in pictures. Sorry. That's you.
That's me. I read comics.
Right. But it's just, first of all, it's so dense. As Dave was saying, he does this thing where it's almost Tolkien-esque in that it's so dense. And
it'll go between proper comic pages, which don't get me wrong, it's not just illustrated prose. No. It is full comic sequences, followed by illustrated prose, followed by full comic sequences. Some issues are nothing but comic sequences. Right. Some issues are almost nothing but the prose. It depends on what the scene calls for. And when you read one of his prose scenes, you realize why he did it that way. It's one of those things where it's like visually it would have been uninteresting. Yeah. But there's so much happening and being related via the dialogue and the actions. Whereas then he goes to a comic scene and you're like, oh, that needed to be a comic. And that makes a lot of sense.
And he does. He blends that sort of cartoony, that sort of acute cartoony style with sort of more romantic kind of styles. And it pays off in just spades, man. I will say this. If you're looking for a comic to sit down with just a lamp in the background, a light, turn off all the distractions, turn off the television, pour yourself a glass of good wine or shitty wine, it's up to you. This is the comic you should read. It is an adventure. It definitely puts you in touch. And this is another reason I paired it with this. It's because the protagonist is essentially a version of myself at like 12 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the kid who was just in the adventure, traveling the multiverse.
Well, one of the reasons Mark has said that he's doing 2 other comics right now. There's Stardrop that Dallas has mentioned, and Jenny Strange is the other one that he's also doing. And iBox Publishing is his publishing company. And iBox Publishing is his website where you can find all these updates, and he has a Patreon as well, which I highly recommend all of you look into. I will put that all in the comments. No question. I will pimp Mark to the ends of the earth. But
all day.
He has said, because I've talked to him about Thieves and Kings and how it's kind of, he's still producing content for Thieves and Kings, but very slowly. And he's basically said, I'm just not the person I was when I started it.
Yeah.
And he's like,
that sucks as a fan. That sucks.
Right. And so he's struggling to get to that. And even though he thinks he's close to the end at this point, he's on volume 6 and he thinks it might be 8 absolute total, like a 7th and an 8th volume, and he's done. But he has said to me in emails and whatnot that he has struggled to find his way forward with Thieves and Kings just because he's not that person that created the concept in the first place. And
1993, 94,
something
I
like
believe,
that.
By the way, the first issues.
Yes. So if you're a creator, you might you might feel him there if that's something. If you've ever had ideas where you're like, you thought were brilliant 20 years ago, and now you're like,
and you should be growing,
right? You should be growing, but at the same time, when you start something and you get 40 plus issues in, plus a couple extra volumes. It's like, there comes that point where it's like, could you just end the fucking thing? Could you find a way?
You've got really opinionated fans out there like Dallas and Dave going, okay, come on, guys.
Right, like find a way, or end it in a way that makes sense for who you are today. And that might not be your original ending. It might not be where you were originally going to go. In a way, that still kind of sucks, because part of me always wonders, where would that have gone? If he had been able to finish it while... he was still
in the moment
in that moment, being that person. But life is life. And
by the way, Mark, if you're watching, chop chop.
Yes. Although I will say, Stardrop is amazing.
It is.
Jenny Strange is amazing. I've read everything.
I haven't read Jenny Strange.
I have read Jenny Strange. And I think that's his like big he's most in Jenny Strange right now, I think. It's been a little while since I last spoke to him, but
is he got a deal?
No. He's very no. He's very doing his own thing, and that's what he likes to do. But Jenny Strange, Stardrop.
I bet we could get some Netflix attention.
I don't know about Netflix right now. Netflix is like cutting half its staff.
Like 450 people.
Right. I think we'll wait to see where the streaming wars land before we worry about anything else. But Jenny Strange, Stardrop, and most importantly, Thieves and Kings was where he started. And it is Thieves and Kings is something that means a lot to me. It means a lot to a lot of readers. To the point where we're still following him through Stardrop and Jenny Strange, regardless that he's not finishing Thieves and Kings. We're like, we don't fucking care. I mean, a part of us doesn't fucking care. We will read whatever he makes.
Right, but there's that shadow part of us who's like, okay, maybe he'll get back to it.
I desperately want him to finish Thieves and Kings. Don't get me wrong, Mark, if you're listening, I desperately want you to finish Thieves and Kings.
Chop, chop, buddy.
I also will say that, like, he has a unique voice. And it's a voice that lends itself really well to the comics that he's made.
And in sort of connection to the wine, it is such a uniquely, at least the first volume is so uniquely 90s. Because when you start thinking about things like Dungeons and Dragons and all the sort of Saturday morning cartoons and, you know, things that we were sort of into. This falls right in line with it. He just gave us so much sort of text and literature to kind of, you know, deepen the world. And bravo, Mark. Seriously.
Bravo. Mark. I obviously second that.
All right. Bravo, Château Lagrange.
Absolutely. And Wine Spies, who gave us this bottle at a very affordable price. I don't know if we're going to be able to top this, but we are going to try in a future special unbottling, where we will do wines that are special in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's the age, maybe it's the price, maybe it's something else. But we will always make sure to make a very special episode, because it's one of those things where it's like, if I'm going to open this bottle, I'm going to do something special about it, because motherfucker. All right. We're going to finish the rest of this wine.
Oh, we are?
We are going to finish the rest of this wine, but we're going to peace out for the rest of you guys. We will see you.
Let's just keep talking.
Let's just keep talking. Let's see what happens. In case...
So tell me more about the HELLBLAZER. Fantastic. You have an adorable face. You know that, don't you?
She does. You're like, I'm fucking adorable. I got it. Shouldn't you be adorable?
Oh, look at that tail wagging. You make me want a dog, and I'm so not a dog person.
I will say, if you get a dog, labs are easy because they're very friendly and very sweet. Oh, and there she goes. Uh-oh. You stared at her long enough.
I know.
You must want my attention. Why else are you staring at me?
That's the cork coming off.
Oh, lovely.
That is the wet cork squeaking itself off.
High pitch.
Weak. Okay. All right.
Fuck, this is good.
It's so
sorry.
good. It's so good. Oh, no. Let's pour a
the
little.
first time that was
No, not even.
I don't know. I'm so clueless when it like comes to cursing. Because every third word for me is a curse word. Because I turn them into other words.
Ditto.
So.
I curse so casually.
Me too.
I always have to tell. Maybe this will go in the episode. Maybe it won't. It's recording. But I always have to tell my day job work people because I'm cursing and I'm like, oh, I'm not angry.
Yeah.
Is the computer supposed to be plugged into the camera?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay, good.
Yes, it's not. Shit. Oh, shit.
Okay, good.
Now, we might have fucked something else up.
I'm sure, yeah.
I'm going to find out in post. And if, I will write this out as a blog post if it has to exist that way. But it's like, come on. But anyway, I was going to say, I always have to tell my day job people, like, because I curse so casually. It's just like thrown off the cuff. And I'm like, it's like, that's fucking, terrible. We should fix that. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't feel strongly about it.
Right.
I just said we need to fucking fix that. But I don't feel, I'm totally, like, if we can't, that's fine.
Curse words are utility words.
Exactly. It's like, it's a spice.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be like, we have to do it. But I have learned in my lifetime, and we just described how old we fucking are.
Hey, guy.
I have learned in my lifetime that I have to sometimes let people know that my cursing is totally off the cuff.